Yes, Supreme UK Chiefesses. I promised earlier I was going to send a video clip to the forum just to explain certain things that some people might not know. I am Chief Prince Emeka Okwugba, Redeemer Kunta of Porta Porta, AB Chief 1986-87 Kegites. Supreme Chiefesses. It is obvious that many chiefesses are not aware of the relationship between the World Council and Eastern Hemisphere Council. This is particular on the part of chiefesses that were coronated in the Western Hemisphere. The Eastern Hemisphere effectively became an independent hemisphere and council in 1997. Following some series of events, and what led to that event is there was a coronation in 1995. There was a coronation in Essex. In that coronation, or in that hemisphere, an Omoba was selected of Essex for coronation. And this Omoba is of the Igbo descent. Fortunately or unfortunately, Chief Anjorin of Essex, Methuselah Antiquity Chief, had a discussion with then the war chief, Chief Oghene, Dester, Dester, and they decided that the picked Omoba will not be coronated. So they picked their own, the second Omoba in question. They took him, who happens to be of the Yoruba descent, and coronated him in Essex in 1995. The chiefesses, the Igbo Eastern Hemisphere, Eastern chiefesses protested and said, why should it be? This was the Omoba selected and he was not coronated. That was to no avail. So the coronation went ahead. So they decided that they were going to present that case at the chiefesses conference at the World Headquarters in 1996. At the World Headquarters in 1996, the Igbo Council of Chiefesses mobilized themselves and they went for the conference. And when they went there, when they got to the conference, they presented the case. Unfortunately, they were not heard. They were not allowed to speak. And even when they speak, they were not recognized. They were really very, very bad and baffled. They were not very happy with it. So they returned to Eastern Hemisphere to tell the chiefesses at home what they saw at the chiefesses conference. And there and then, they had a meeting and it was decided that the Eastern chiefesses were going to pull out from the World Headquarters and stop taking instructions or whatever from the World Quarter. During the following, that World Conference, a lot of issues were discussed. But having pulled out, we now decided that we are not going to be allegiance to the World Headquarters again. Dester said, oh, don't worry, by the time they finish, after some time they are coming back, we know who they are and everything. But unfortunately, we call the World Headquarters Egypt, and we are not going back to Egypt again. So, based on that, we now we reformed Kegites Club in the Eastern Hemisphere. Like the Western Hemisphere, AB chiefesses are life shockables. They do a lot of things. They can be chairman of a hemispheric council. But in Eastern Hemisphere, AB chiefesses are restricted to only their Ilia and the little they can do. They can only ferrorize and they can only transform. The function of being an LSF in an Ilia or being a patron in an Ilia is not based on them. It is a council affair in Eastern Hemisphere. So, however, I want to tell you that even when the Eastern chiefesses pulled out, they were not bound by the solutions of the World Headquarters, but adopt a lot of the world solutions. Eliases in the East no longer obtain keg of office from the AB World, but from the Hemispheric Council chairman. The World Headquarters fully recognizes these aliases that are kept by the Eastern Hemispheric Council. Reason being that in 1996, in 2016, the Eastern Hemispheric Council officially registered with the CAC in Abuja. So they became an independent registered council. So that is the situation now, that we no longer take instruction from the world headquarters. So that is why you see that there are problems when they talk about the functions of the AB, the way we see it, and your own function, the way we see it, especially the Western Hemisphere. So that is why I decided to make this brief thing for the chiefs that doesn't know anything about that doesn't know that the Eastern Hemispheric Council have moved on, and they no longer take instructions from the World Council. They operate independently on their own, recognizing the World Council, because if a chief of the World Council, a chief of World Headquarters comes to the Eastern Hemisphere, we recognize him, we allow him to preside, but if he tries to tell us what to do, we tell him that he shouldn't preside. So we still give respect to the council. So Supreme Chiefs, I thank you very much for listening to me, but I just want you people to know where that division came up from, how it started, and that is what I don't want to happen in the UK. I don't want that division to happen in UK here. We want to be the same, so that what happened in Nigeria will not what happened in UK. May your days be long. I respect all of you, and I thank you for your cooperation. I am Chief Redeemer, Chief Prince Emeka Okwugba, AB Chief Porta Porta 1986-87 Kegites. May you.
I'm the Supreme Comrade. I'm Chief Oghene Dexter, AB World Chief 94-96 Kegites. My attention was drawn to a video circulating around about the crisis of Village Desters in 1995, and I think I need to make some clarification and on the issue of Eastern Hemisphere and the war headquarters. The problem actually started really at the coronation of Village Desters in 1995. I got to that coronation without any notion of any crisis on ground. And I was called and informed by the past chiefs of Village Desters and the staff advisor of the Ilia, in person of Chief Oghene, aka Gorilla, AB Ovia 1983. He was the staff advisor of Village Desters that time. They called my attention to the crisis they had with the Elder City, and that they've been trying to resolve it before that coronation date, but to no avail. What was the problem? The comrade was picked in person of one comrade Okonko. Two comrades were considered at the Elder City, Comrade Okonko, who happened to be an Igbo guy, and one comrade Solomon, who happened to be a Delta guy. Eventually, Comrade Okonko was picked. They said a lot of power play happened at the Elder City and was not there. But the bone of contention was that Comrade Okonko, that was picked as Omoba elect of Village Desters in 1995, is facing panel having a case that borders on courtesy with the School Authority of Petroleum Training Institute, Warri, Village Desters. And evidences was presented. And I told them that we need to call for a larger council invitation to deliberate on the matter. When we got to the gyration ground, after procession, I called for invitation. And we deliberated for over 5 hours. A decision was taken by the Council of Chiefs that we cannot risk somebody who is facing panel on cultism issue to be coronated as AB Chief of Village Desters. The whole Council of Chiefs agreed that another Elder City should be conducted and a neutral person that has no issue, that has no case, should be picked. In addition to that suggestion by the council, I said in the spirit of fairness and equity, the other comrade too, that was considered alongside this comrade Okonko, should be nullified. His candidature as well should be nullified. And we rose from the meeting around 5 a.m. The Council of Elders of Village Desters went, they researched, and they picked Comrade Godwin Akpoto, who happened to be from Ugeli South local government, somewhere around that place. Contrary to what was reported that Chief Dexter single-handedly nullify the other sitting of village dresses and picked the Yoruba candidate and coronated the Yoruba candidate. The person coronated as ADSS in 1995 was an Urobo guy with the name Godwin Akoto, aka Fortunate. And the decision was taken by the Council of Chiefs after deliberation for 5 hours. It was not a unilateral decision of Dester or Chivanjori. It was a council decision. But giving it an ethnic coloration is what baffles me. I'm not saying it the way it happened. That was that as per the coronation of William Dresses. The then ex-Vice Chief of Ilian Kasu mobilized chiefs from Eastern Hemisphere. He was hell-bent. He did everything humanly possible that this comrade Okoko should be coronated. But the decision of the council was different from their own. And as a result, Eastern Hemisphere left that generation. Immediately they discovered that another candidate has been picked. They left that generation in annoyance. They came to the conference in September of 1995, represented the case. They were given the chance, but the Council of Chiefs made them realize that the case came up, it was duly treated, and the chief has been coronated. That there's no way we could revisit a case that has been settled, that we are done with the case. They walk out of the whole Council of Chiefs from the conference. And the generation that preceded, no, the generation after that conference was the coronation of William Dubeta, where Edo Delta went there in mass, and Eastern Hemisphere chiefs refused to recognize chiefs from Edo Delta. After that coronation of Meta, they as well came to either the Poli Auchi coronation. And Edo Delta retaliated, they did not allow them to regulate and process too. I got to the one generation of Iliadu Ama, Oka, first phase, Iliadu Inkasu, Insuka campus, second phase. And they brought up the case again in 1996 that except the coronation of Iliadu Dresses was revisited, that they were not going to allow me to preside over their generation. I placed embargo on those generations, and the Council of Chiefs met at Ilia Faja and suspended comradic activities in Ilian Council and Ilian Duama for their act of insubordination. To cut the long story short, contrary to the story being peddled around that Okoko was not coronated because he was an Igbo guy. No. A lot of Igbo guy has been coronated outside Eastern Hemisphere before him, and a lot after him has been coronated. It was a case of cultism, and we upheld the tenet and the law of the club by not coronating the cultist. It was as simple as ABC. I became an ex-wife, and in 1997 I learned that they had a conference in Eastern Hemisphere, and they said they are seceding from the war headquarters. And speaking on behalf of the war headquarters, our position is very, very simple. Any Iliad that does not obtain their care of offices from war headquarters is not recognized by war headquarters and the larger council. We know the Iliads that got their care of office from war headquarters. And out of the 36 states that we have in Nigeria, at least 31 states are still under war headquarters. If Eastern Hemisphere want to come back today to the fold, all those Iliads that they gave care to independently, we have to come back and obtain their kind of office the right way. The door is open for them to come back anytime. We are not the one that pursued them. They left out of their own volition. We have Igbos, we have other ethnic groups who are still part of the larger country. And on the issue of registration, the Supreme Kegites Club International has been registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission since 2012. So if Eastern Hemisphere has gone to register their Eastern Hemisphere in 2016, that does not mean the club has not been registered before then. We got the club registered in 2012 as one body. And Headquarters is not going to recognize any Ilia that is operating independently and using their own law. The selection guiding Kegites Club is one. Iliases are recognized with their functions and ABs are recognized with their functions. We have parent body that are recognized too. Nobody can come from Eastern Hemisphere and come and force their own law on the larger council. We are not forcing our own on them. So my clarification is that since Eastern Hemisphere said their independence is 1997, they should not come and force whatever they are doing in Eastern Hemisphere alone on other part of the club. Comradium to us is one. Supreme Council of Chiefs and the larger council still remain one under the umbrella of the World Headquarters. May your work and never to stop. You are